A compendium of the Bible, a study of the book of Haggai. The prophet bears the name of his author because his name means fested one. It is suggested that Haggai was born on a feast day. Haggai is the second shortest book in the Old Testament. Obadiah is the shortest and is quoted by the New Testament only once, found in Hebrew chapter 12, verse 26. Little is known about Haggai apart from this short prophecy. He is mentioned briefly in Ezra chapter 5, verse 1 and chapter 6, verse 14. On both occasions, in conjunction with the prophet Zechariah, the list of refugees in Ezra mention nothing of Haggai. Here are no indications of his parentage or tribal ancestry, nor does history provide any record of his occupation. He is the only person in the Old Testament with the name, although similar names occur in Genesis 46:16, Numbers 26, and verse 15, 2 Samuel chapter 3, verse 4, 1 Chronicles chapter 6, verse 30. Furthermore, Haggai 2 and 3 may suggest that he too had seen the glory of Solomon's temple before it was destroyed, making him at least 70 years of age when writing his prophecy. The primary theme is the rebuilding of God's temple, which had been lying in ruin since its destruction by Nebuchadnezzar in 586 BC. By means of 5 messages from the Lord, Haggai exhorts the people to renew their effort to build the house of the Lord. He motivated them by nothing that the drought and crop failure were caused by misplaced spiritual priorities in chapter 1, verse 9 through 11. But to Haggai, the rebuilding of the temple was not an end in itself. The temple represented God's dwelling place. He manifests present with his chosen people. The destruction of the temple by Nebuchadnezzar followed the departure of God's dwelling glory. According to Ezekiel chapter 8 through chapter 11. To the prophet, the rebuilding of the temple invites the return of God's presence to their midst, using the historical situation as a springboard. Haggai reverted in the supreme glory of the ultimate messianic temple yet to come, according to chapter 2, verse 7, encouraging them with the promise of even greater peace, chapter 2, verse 9, prosperity, chapter 2, verse 19, divine rulership, chapter 2, verse 21 through 22, and national blessings, chapter 2, verse 23, during the millennium. The most permanent interpretation within the prophecy is the phrase, the desire of all nations, found in chapter 2, verse 7. Although many translations exist, there are essentially only 2 interpretations, pointing to the silver is mine, and the gold is mine. Chapter 2, verse 8. As well as to Isaiah chapter 60, verse 5, and Zechariah chapter 14, verse 14. Some content that it refers to Jerusalem, to which the wealth of other nations will be brought during the millennium. Isaiah chapter 60, verse 11, 61, verse 6. It seems preferable, however, to see reference here to the Messiah, a deliverer for whom all the nations ultimately long. Not only is this interpretation supported by the ancient rabbi and the early church, the mansion of glory in the latter part of the verse suggests a personal reference to the Messiah. Isaiah chapter 40, verse 5, chapter 60, verse 1, and Luke chapter 2 and verse 32. The outline of this book: rebuke for disobedience, chapter 1, verse 1 through 11. Remnants respond and rebuild, chapter 1, verse 12 through 15. Return of God's glory, chapter 2, verse 1 through 9. Religious questions, chapter 2, verse 10 through 19. Reign of the Lord, chapter 2, verse 20 through 23. Thus concludes the overview of the book of Haggai.